When you think of Homer's Odyssey, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, it's all about the monsters and the magic, right? The Cyclops, Circe turning men into pigs, the siren's deadly song. But what if I told you that's not the real story? Today, we're diving into what this epic is actually about. And it turns out, the most dangerous monsters might not be on some far-flung island. They might be waiting for you right at your own front door. So, let's just start with the question. Imagine you've spent 10 long, brutal years fighting the Trojan War. And you've actually won. It's over. What could possibly be harder than that? For the heroes of ancient Greece, the answer was terrifyingly simple. Coming home. That journey back, it was a final test, an ordeal that was often even greater than the war itself. And it was a test that many of the greatest warriors, well, they failed. And this brings us right to the heart of the Odyssey. See, it's not just a sequel to the Iliad's war story. It's an epic about a completely different kind of war fought on a very, very different battlefield. The Greeks had a powerful word for this, nostos. It means homecoming, but it's so much more than that. It's the whole struggle to return, not just to a place, but to your life, to your family, to who you even are. For a hero like Achilles, nostos was something he had to give up to get glory. For a lot of others, it was a prize they just couldn't win. And this was a huge deal back then. Stories about homecoming were a whole genre of entertainment. There was even another epic poem called the Nostoi, which means the returns. So the Odyssey is basically Homer's masterpiece version of this kind of story, and it focuses on the one hero who was perfectly, uniquely built to survive it. And to really understand why Odysseus succeeds, the poem constantly reminds us of one spectacular failure, Agamemnon. This guy was the leader of the entire Greek army. He gets home, he's triumphant, he lets his guard down for 1 second, and he's murdered in his own palace. His story is this constant, chilling warning echoing through the whole poem. Just getting there doesn't mean you've survived. So all of this shifts the focus squarely onto Odysseus's home, Ithaca, because that's where the real danger is. While Odysseus is lost at sea, his entire kingdom is literally tearing itself apart from the inside. Okay, let's get into this, because the structure of the poem is it's genius. It doesn't start when the Trojan War ends. No, it starts in media res, right in the middle of everything. We're 10 years after the war is over, just a few weeks before Odysseus finally gets back to Ithaca. And doing it this way builds incredible tension, because we see the crisis at home before we even meet the hero. And what a crisis it is. Over 100 arrogant suitors have basically invaded his palace. They're literally eating him out of house and home, all while trying to force his wife, Penelope, to marry one of them. And his son, Telemachus, he's just becoming a man, and he's powerless to stop them. In fact, get this, the first 4 books of the Odyssey aren't even about Odysseus. They're about his son, Telemachus, trying to find any news of his long-lost father. That's right, we don't even meet our main hero until book 5. And when we finally see him, he's not some monster-slaying badass. He's trapped on an island with a goddess and he's weeping on a beach. He's totally broken. It's the absolute lowest point of his entire journey. And this brings us to the poem's biggest surprise. All those famous adventures we all know and love, the Cyclops, Circe, all of that, they aren't the main plot. They're all told in a flashback. It's a story Odysseus himself tells right in the middle of the poem. The real story, the main event, is what happens when he finally gets home. So, to survive this homecoming, to win this different kind of war, Odysseus needs more than just a sharp sword. He needs a secret weapon, a quality of mind that makes him different from every other hero out there. And that weapon is called metis. It's this awesome Greek word for a special kind of intelligence. It's a mix of cunning, of cleverness, of being able to think on your feet. It's the ability to come up with brilliant plans, to use disguises, to play the long game. It's not about how strong you are, it's about how smart you are. And this just perfectly shows the new kind of hero the Odyssey is celebrating. The Iliad gave us Achilles, the hero of Supia, of pure, raw force. He was the greatest warrior, all about honor, and he literally chose glory over living a long life. But the Odyssey gives us Odysseus, the hero of metis. He's a master of plans and is willing to hide who he is, to pretend to be a nobody, all to achieve his ultimate goal. The most famous example of metis in action has to be the Cyclops, right? He's trapped, he's totally outmatched, he can't fight this giant head on. So what does he do? He uses his mind. He tells the Cyclops his name is No Man. So later, when he blinds the creature, the giant screams for help, "No man is hurting me," and his brothers just ignore him. It's an absolutely brilliant tactical move. And it's exactly this kind of cunning that he's going to need for the final, and by far the most dangerous phase of his journey, the battle for his own home. This is the climax the entire poem has been building up to. So forget Troy, forget some monster's cave, the true battlefield of the Odyssey is this. It's the palace of Odysseus. The final, the most glorious, and the most bloody battle of the entire epic happens right inside these walls. And he doesn't just charge in, fists flying. He approaches it with a meticulous plan. He uses his metis. He sneaks into his own home disguised as a beggar, taking insults and abuse just so he can scope out the situation. He and his son secretly hide all the suitor's weapons. He then uses a contest his wife sets up to get his legendary bow back into his own hands. And only then, when the trap is perfectly set, does he reveal who he really is. What happens next is a brutal, total victory. The poem makes it crystal clear that this fight in his own living room is just as epic, just as heroic, and just as important as any of the huge battles they fought on the plains of Troy. This is the final exam of his homecoming. So when all is said and done, the Odyssey gives us this really profound new way of looking at what it even means to be a hero. It's not just about being strong or winning glory on the battlefield. Ultimately, the qualities that let Odysseus win are things like patience, self-control, cunning, and sheer endurance. It's his ability to suffer, to wait, to put off what he wants right now for a much, much bigger prize. These are the traits of a true survivor, the hero who gets that the war isn't over until you're finally safe at home. So unlike Achilles, who had to choose glory or a long life, the Odyssey gives us Odysseus, the hero who's clever enough to get both. He wins the war, he gets the glory, and he makes it home. He proves that real heroism isn't just about winning the battle. It's about having the brains and the toughness to win the peace that comes after. And that leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? For almost 3,000 years, this poem has been whispering to us that our biggest challenges, our most defining battles, they aren't fought in some faraway land against mythical beasts. They're fought right here, inside our own walls, for the things that matter most. So what's the home that you're fighting for?